Hey, what's up guys? Alright, so we have the complete chapter summary for chapter 357, which looks like, according to the summary I read earlier today, which is different from the one I'm about to read you guys for this video, it looks like this is actually going to be the ending of the fight between Endeavor and his team versus All For One, which, based on what I read earlier and some of the leaked images I saw, this chapter looks like it's going to be incredibly hype. So anyway, let's just jump right into the summary. Okay, so as always, the summary is actually brought to us by Rukasu, and basically the chapter begins with All For One protecting himself from Endeavor's attack with a force field quirk. He says that that was a close one, and even though he had already seen it coming, he can't help but remember his first fight against All Might. He says that a wounded hero is the scariest thing there is, and we see a full page showing an enraged Endeavor concentrating fire where his right arm should be. I made a joke on another YouTuber channel when they were talking about the leaks for last week's chapter, which by the way I missed going over because of how busy I was last week. But I made a joke that I found it funny how both My Hero Academia and Black Clover both have a character whose main power is fire, who both lost an arm and then replaced that arm with fire. And before anyone says anything, I'm not saying that My Hero is copying Black Clover, I'm just saying that I found it funny that both ended up doing something similar with two different characters who are completely opposite from each other. He then moves right in front of All For One. He is confused by the sudden speed, which is courtesy to Hawks. So I'm guessing Hawks most likely is using his feathers to kind of like move Endeavor around at high speeds, which makes sense because considering the fact that Endeavor's lung was kind of punctured or damaged at some point in the fight early on, it doesn't really make sense how Endeavor's able to move this fast. But if he's actually getting help from Hawks, that explains it. He sent in some feathers. Alright, so like I just said, Hawks using his feathers to help Endeavor to propel Endeavor as they did in their fight against High End. Endeavor then forms a huge fist and hits All For One with a vanishing jet burn. Okay, so Endeavor is doing something similar to what Tokoyami did in the last chapter, but you know, his version of it made out fire. All For One is thrown to the ground and the heroes below are confused by the impact of the fire because the plan said that Endeavor would deal with him in the air. Hawks asks why he didn't use Prominence Burn, and Endeavor says that All For One focused on defense by activating the force field, and Prominence Burn is too valuable a resource to be used in such a risky way. Hawks is surprised by Endeavor's reasoning and says he's cooled off, but NG says he's mad as ever. Kamui sees that it is All For One that is down there and immediately grabs the other heroes so that they can escape. They were outraged because they thought it was their chance to team up and finish him off, but it's at this point that Endeavor comes down with another attack. Kamui says that they need to make room for him, and Endeavor manages to break the force field. Okay, if I'm being honest, I completely forgot there are other heroes here, especially Kamui Wood. I mean, when's the last time we actually got to see them? I swear, since we started this fight, what was it, 3-4 chapters ago? We only saw Endeavor and Hawks. I don't remember. I know that they were probably there like when they were introducing this fight in the beginning of the arc, once all the heroes got separated with all the villains, but I don't remember them actually being, I don't actually remember who was there besides Hawks and Endeavor because those are the only characters we've been focusing on besides Jiro and Tokoyami. But it is kind of cool seeing that Kamui Wood is there. He's actually a character I've always kind of secretly dug and wished had more involvement in the overall story, but really hasn't been that involved or been that prominent. I mean, when it comes to like the side character heroes, he's probably the most prominent one, but when it comes down to the overall story and the involvements in big fights, he doesn't really get that much screen time. And you know, now knowing that he's here, I kind of wish that Horikoshi would have involved him a little bit more in the actual fight. And maybe if this fight doesn't actually end up ending in this chapter, maybe we might get to see a little bit of involvement from him. But if this is the only screen time we're going to get from him, I guess I'm going to take it. Endeavor begins dragging All For One along the ground for a long distance. Alright, so I'm getting flashbacks to what happened to Frieza during the Torment of Power. All For One says that he can't move properly without the mask and tries to touch Endeavor to steal his quirk, but he shoots fire out of his eyes before All For One can make contact. Holy shit, have we ever seen Endeavor? I mean, I kind of figured that maybe he might be able to do this since he can shoot fire pretty much out of everywhere else, but have we ever seen Endeavor actually use like heat vision before? He says that these hands only exist to destroy the future of others, which by the way, I think this is Endeavor saying this. All For One tries to retort saying that Endeavor's hands do the exact same thing, and he agrees. Endeavor's narration then begins with him saying that the past cannot be erased. All the anger, resentment, and punishment will accompany him into the future, a future that must be crossed by the next generation. Oh, okay, this is actually kind of interesting because one of the leaked images that has actually been going around Twitter since earlier this week, like I want to say started on Monday night, is an image of Shoto and the rest of Class 1A looking a little bit older with slight redesigns. Most of them kind of look exactly the same with a little bit of modifications to their costumes. But yeah, it looks like this is basically when that's actually going to be taking place in the chapter. Basically, Endeavor during this speech is going to have like a flash forward or like a vision of what's going to be coming up in the future when it comes to like Shoto's redesign and him and his friends becoming like basically pro heroes. He must win this battle to ensure that the young ones will be able to choose the path that they want and not repeat the mistakes of the adults. This is when we see a panel showing, alright, this is what I was just talking about, showing some of the grown-up students, and then Endeavor says that he accepts to continue being punished as long as he gets out alive, because after winning this fight, he will still need to take care of Toya. The narration closes with Endeavor saying that he will continue to hate himself while using Prominence Burn at full power. Okay, so this is a nice little speech by Endeavor. I mean, we've kind of been treading the same water with him for the longest time now, ever since we got that like training arc, or that arc where he took Deku, Todoroki, and Bakugo under his wing as like apprentices for that one little bit before the big war started. We've been kind of treading in the same water with him, basically accepting the fact that he has to atone for all his past mistakes and that he's never going to be forgiven by his family, which, by the way, I kind of have the feeling that after this arc's over, like when everything's said and done, most likely because he might end up almost dying during this fight, that a majority of his family, at the very least, you know, obviously, Shoto's already kind of basically forgiven him. His daughter is more than likely going to end up forgiving him. I think his wife or ex-wife, whatever their situation is, I think she might end up being more forgiving towards him later on. And I do think that if he does end up almost dying, because we saw that Natsuo did seem to care a little bit when he was actually getting injured fighting the high-end Nobu, then maybe he might end up forgetting him too. But at the end of the day, I think because he might end up being gravely injured or almost dying during this war, more than likely his entire family is going to end up forgiving him for everything he's done, even though he won't accept their forgiveness or really think he deserves it. But when it comes to him saying that he wants to be able to raise Toya at the end of this, that's not going to happen. I highly doubt that Dabi's going to make it out of this alive, because he is a villain. And even though it is very rare for characters to die in Shonen Jump series, that does not count towards villains. And I mean, after everything that Dabi's done, the only way, even if he were to turn to the good side near the end of this arc, the only way for him to be redeemed in any way, shape, or form would be to either spend the rest of his life in jail, or to possibly end up sacrificing himself in order to save Todoroki, or to save Shoto. So because of that, there's no way that, regardless of which way it ends up going, that Endeavor's going to be able to raise Toya going forward, or to raise Dabi going forward. So he's kind of going to have to give up on that dream at some point. After the attack, All For One seems to have been reduced to ashes. Endeavor confirms that he had no regeneration whatsoever, and even if he is hiding one, his body is not as resistant as Shigaraki's was in the previous war. One attack like that was more than enough, he's dead. That's when Endeavor thinks. Alright, so this is where it's a little confusing, because in the last translation I read, it said that All For One was pretty much dead, like his body was turned to ash completely, and then we see something like a spirit or something leaving his body. Now, this one's saying that Endeavor thinks he's dead, but not yet. But Hawks yells at him to get away from the body. All For One starts talking again, asking if the heroes really thought that he had gone into this battle without setting up any schemes. This body is already disposable. Alright, so I think this might be saying that, you know, he is going to die, or this body's going to die, but, you know, he has his plan of basically backing up his body or his mind inside of Shigaraki. So he wanted to use it to test if something would work. At this moment, we see Eri in a frame full of capsules that resemble the anti-quirk bullets. It's just a symbolism, she's fine, still at UA. Alright, this is actually kind of worrying me, because in the other translation I read, we saw that it mentioned that Eri showed up in the chapter, and that's what was confusing me, because as far as we were aware, besides that whole like fake out the fans had of that person that they thought might be Eri's mom, it turns out not to be, there was no connection to Eri at all in this fight. So I was a little bit worried with her showing up that, you know, is this us showing or finding out that All For One has schemed something to get at her? Because even though the last time we checked, she was still safe at UA, All For One still has those people that are hiding amongst his villains that are working under him. So at any point, he could actually had them planned to basically, once all the heroes went away, to find a way to get at her and then steal her and basically take her to where he is. Now, obviously, they're not going to be able to get to him, because even All For One didn't know he was going to be teleported here, so there's no way he's going to be able to get them over there. But there's still the possibility that Eri might have been in danger. But in the summary, we're finding out that it's basically just symbolism to show that, you know, something along with the quirk or the anti-quirk bullets are basically being used in this chapter, and she's actually fine, so that headache's gone. Putting your own body at risk is what you guys do, isn't it? As he asks this, an eye and an ear begin to grow from the charred body of All For One. The narration from the beginning of the chapter continues, but villains are also even scarier when they are injured. The focus shifts over to the ocean. Yoichi, the first One For All user, senses something strange in the horse Deku. However, at the same moment, he realizes that multiple somethings or someones are coming towards him. End of chapter. Okay, so this is going to be interesting, because now that we have All For One, after being hit by a full power Prominence Burn, being a charred body who's somehow regenerating an eye and an ear, I'm not sure what's going on with that. But on top of that, it has something to do with whatever's going to be happening with Deku, with these multiple somethings or someones coming at him. Now, my main theory is that All For One has some kind of like backup plan, that he has multiple villains that are working under him, going to intercept Deku in order to basically hold him off for the longest period of time as possible, so that Shigaraki can fully awaken, or that his conscience can fully awaken inside Shigaraki and take it over. Which, in my opinion, is the smartest move that Horikoshi can make story-wise for this situation, because not only would it make it so that Deku ends up fighting against the full power All For One, and we actually get to see that epic fight, but because it also gives Bakugo a chance to fight against the current Shigaraki and have a serious fight for this arc, because he is part of the big three for the series, and we've already got Todoroki who had his fight against Dabi, and obviously Deku's going to have a 1v1 against the full-powered Shigaraki All For One merge, or whatever you want to call it, at the end of the arc. But before that, we had to have Bakugo have his big fight, and it actually would be kind of cool to get to see Bakugo fight against the current, like, confused, not fully powered Shigaraki, and see him basically have a 1v1 against that, win in that fight, and then after Shigaraki loses and All For One takes control, and we see Deku show up and actually get the full powered All For One versus the full power, or Deku's full power one for all. But anyway guys, that's it for the summary video. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to reading this chapter. I'm kind of glad. I was actually a little disappointed when I read the previous summary that I read, because I thought the fight was ending in this chapter, and like I said, this has actually been my favorite fight and most anticipated fight of the entire arc so far. So I was a little sad that it might be ending, but more than likely, with that whole, like, All For One regenerating an ear and an eye in this chapter, there might be at least one more chapter for it. There's no break next week, so look forward to the next video. But anyway, that's it for the video, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.